Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars through the main window. The Frontier Dawn was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and had good equipment for exploring new areas of space. Jake had been a ship captain for 10 years, and he loved his job of finding new worlds and mapping unknown parts of the galaxy. "Captain, we are getting some strange signals," said Lisa Hayes, his tactical officer. She was young but very smart, and Jake trusted her completely. Lisa had joined his crew 2 years ago after finishing top of her class at the Space Academy. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of signals?" "Distress calls, sir, but they are coming from 3 different star systems, all at the same time." Lisa looked worried as she checked her equipment again. "And, Captain, these are not human signals. They are from alien colonies." Nick Carter, the ship's engineer, looked up from his workstation. "That does not make sense. Why would 3 different alien colonies all send distress calls at the same time? They are too far apart to be connected." Dr. Amy Brooks, the ship's scientist who studied alien life, came onto the bridge carrying her data pad. "I have been listening to these signals for the past hour. The aliens are all saying the same thing. Something is attacking them, something they have never seen before." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In his years of space travel, he had learned to trust his instincts. When something felt wrong, it usually was wrong. "Can you play one of the signals?" Amy touched her data pad, and the bridge filled with the sound of an alien voice. The creature was speaking in its own language, but the ship's computer translated the words into English. The voice was full of fear and panic. "Help us. They came from nowhere. Our weapons do nothing against them. They're destroying everything. The crystal beings are killing everyone. Please, if anyone can hear this, stay away from the Rigel system. They are coming for all of us." The signal ended and the bridge was quiet. Jake looked at his crew. Each of them had the same worried look on their faces. "Set course for the nearest signal," Jake said. "We need to see what is happening." "Sir, are you sure that is a good idea?" Nick asked. "If something is strong enough to destroy alien colonies, maybe we should report this to Earth first." Jake thought about this for a moment. Nick was right to be careful, but Jake could not ignore people who needed help. "We will be careful, but we have to investigate. If there is a new threat in this part of space, Earth needs to know about it." The Frontier Dawn jumped to faster than light speed and headed toward the Vega system, where the first distress signal had come from. The trip took 6 hours, and during that time, more distress calls came in from other systems. Each call told the same story. Crystal beings with powerful weapons were attacking alien colonies and destroying everything in their path. When they arrived at the Vega system, Jake could not believe what he saw. Where there should have been a busy alien colony with ships and space stations, there was only debris floating in space. Pieces of broken ships and destroyed buildings drifted silently among the stars. "Scan for life signs," Jake ordered. Lisa worked at her station for several minutes before shaking her head. "Nothing, Captain. No life signs anywhere in the system. Whatever happened here, no one survived." Amy was studying the debris with the ship's sensors. "Captain, look at this. The metal has been cut with some kind of energy weapon, but it is unlike anything I have ever seen. The cuts are perfectly clean, like the metal was sliced with a laser that was 1,000 times more powerful than anything we have. And look at this," Nick added, pointing to his screen. The alien space stations were not just destroyed. They were taken apart piece by piece. This was not a quick attack. Someone spent time here making sure nothing was left whole. Jake stared at the destruction. In all his years in space, he had never seen anything like this. Whoever had done this was not just powerful, they were thorough. They had made sure that nothing could be rebuilt or repaired. "Captain, I am picking up something on long-range sensors," Lisa said. "There is a ship heading this way." "It is big, sir." "Much bigger than anything in our fleet." "Is it human?" "No, sir. The design is completely unknown. And Captain, it is moving fast." Jake made a quick decision. "Take us behind that large asteroid. Cut all power except life support. I want to see this ship without it seeing us." The Frontier Dawn moved quickly to hide behind a large space rock. Jake and his crew waited quietly as the unknown ship approached. When it came close enough for them to see it clearly, Jake felt his blood run cold. The ship was enormous, at least 5 times the size of the biggest human warship. It was made of what looked like black crystal, and it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy patterns moved across its surface like lightning, and Jake could feel power coming from it even at this distance. Amy, are you recording this? Yes, sir. But Captain, the energy readings from that ship are incredible. It has more power than our entire fleet combined. The crystal ship moved slowly through the debris field, and Jake watched as it sent out small beams of light that scanned the wreckage. It seemed to be looking for something or making sure that its job was complete. They are checking their work, Jake whispered, making sure they destroyed everything. After 20 minutes, the crystal ship disappeared in a flash of light, jumping to faster than light speed. Jake waited another hour before ordering his ship to move out from behind the asteroid. Set course for Earth, maximum speed, he said. And send a message to Admiral Blake. Tell her we have found a threat that is bigger than anything humanity has ever faced. As the Frontier Dawn raced toward Earth, Jake could not stop thinking about what he had seen. The crystal beings, whoever they were, had technology that was far beyond anything the known alien species possessed. They had destroyed an entire colony without losing a single ship, and they had done it with terrifying efficiency. Jake had spent his life exploring the galaxy and meeting new species. He had always believed that most conflicts could be solved through talking and understanding. But what he had seen in the Vega system was not a misunderstanding or a territorial dispute. It was complete destruction carried out by beings who seemed to have no interest in communication or mercy. When the Frontier Dawn reached Earth 3 days later, Jake found Admiral Susan Blake waiting for him at the space station. She was a tough woman who had worked her way up through the ranks of the human fleet, and Jake respected her more than any other officer he had served under. "Show me everything," she said as soon as Jake came aboard the station. Jake and his crew spent the next several hours sharing their recordings and data with the Admiral and her staff. When they finished, the room was quiet for a long time. "How many alien colonies have been destroyed?" Admiral Blake asked. "At least 12, ma'am," Lisa answered, "and the attacks are spreading." The crystal beings seemed to be moving toward the more populated systems. Admiral Blake stood up and walked to the window that looked out into space. "Jake, I am sending you to the Galactic Council meeting on Centauri Prime. The alien species are calling an emergency session to discuss this threat. I want human representatives there." "What about the fleet, Admiral?" "I am taking every ship we have and heading to the outer systems. If these crystal beings are moving this way, we need to be ready to fight them." She turned back to Jake. "But first, we need to learn everything we can about them. That is your job." As Jake prepared to leave for the Galactic Council meeting, he could not shake the feeling that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge. The crystal beings had destroyed advanced alien colonies with ease. What chance did humans have against such powerful enemies? But Jake Morrison had been raised in the mountains of Montana before joining the space fleet. His father had taught him to hunt and track animals in the wilderness. One thing he had learned from those days was that sometimes the smallest and weakest hunter could bring down the biggest prey if they were smart enough and brave enough. He just hoped that lesson would be enough to save the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber on Centauri Prime was filled with representatives from 12 different alien species. Jake Morrison sat at the human table and looked around the huge room. He had never seen so many different types of aliens in one place before. The Zilani delegates looked like tall, thin cats that walked on 2 legs. Their fur was silver and their large eyes seemed to see everything. The Krathan warriors were big and covered in thick armor-like skin. They carried weapons even in the council chamber and spoke in loud, rough voices. The Nexari were the strangest to Jake. They looked like machines made of metal and crystal, but Amy had told him they were actually living beings. They spoke in perfect, emotionless voices and seemed to calculate everything before they said it. "The situation is worse than we first thought," said Counselor Zara of the Zilani. Her voice was soft but carried clearly across the chamber. "The crystal beings have destroyed 17 colonies in the past week. We have lost contact with entire star systems." Commander Thak of the Krathan stood up, his massive frame towering over the other delegates. "We should attack them directly. Gather our fleets and meet them in battle. The Krathan do not run from any enemy." "That approach has already been tried," said Nexari Prime Unit 7. 3 Krathan battle groups engaged the crystal beings near the Altair system. None survived. "The enemy's technology is superior to ours by a factor of at least 10 to 1. Jake felt all eyes turned toward him. As the council members realized the human delegation had been quiet, he stood up slowly, knowing that what he said next could determine humanity's role in the coming war. "My name is Captain Jake Morrison. of the human exploration vessel Frontier Dawn. My crew and I were among the first to encounter evidence of these crystal beings. He paused, looking around the room. We call them the Vorthak, based on transmissions we intercepted from their ships. And what does humanity propose we do about the Vorthak threat? Asked Counselor Zara. Jake took a deep breath. With respect to all present, I think we are approaching this problem the wrong way. Everyone is trying to fight the Vorthak like they would fight any other enemy. But the Vorthak are not like any other enemy. Commander Thak made a sound that might have been laughter. The humans think they understand war better than species who have been fighting for thousands of years? No, sir, Jake replied. But I think we understand hunting. The chamber fell quiet. Jake could see confusion on many of the alien faces. Explain, said Nexari Prime Unit 7. Jake walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display showed the pattern of Vorthak attacks. Look at how they move. They do not attack randomly. They hit the strongest colonies first, then the medium ones, then the weak ones. They always use overwhelming force. They never take risks. Amy Brooks activated her data pad and shared her analysis with the chamber's display system. The Vorthak show behavior patterns consistent with efficient predators, but not intelligent predators. They are more like insects. They follow programmed patterns. What are you suggesting? Asked Counselor Zara. Jake pointed to the attack pattern on the display. Where I come from on Earth, we hunt animals much larger and stronger than we are. Bears, elk, even buffalo. We do not try to overpower them because we cannot. Instead, we study how they behave. We learn their patterns, then we use those patterns against them. Lisa Hayes stood up at the human table. Captain Morrison is right. I have been studying the Vorthak ship movements, and they are completely predictable. They always approach a target from the same direction relative to the star system's plane. They always attack the largest ships first. They always retreat along the same path they used to approach. You are saying they are stupid? Commander Thak asked. No, Jake replied. I am saying they are efficient. Too efficient. They have found tactics that work, and they never change them. That makes them predictable. Dr. Amy Brooks activated another part of her presentation. I have also discovered something important about their technology. The Vorthak ships are incredibly powerful, but they have a weakness. Their energy shields are designed to stop direct attacks from the front and sides. They are much weaker from behind and below. How does this help us? Asked Nexari Prime Unit 7. Our ships cannot get behind them. They are too fast and too powerful. Jake smiled for the first time since arriving at the council. That is where hunting tactics come in. In hunting, you do not chase your prey. You make your prey come to you. Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began ringing throughout the council chamber. A Zilani communication officer ran into the room. Counselors, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a large Vorthak fleet approaching the Centauri system. They will be here in 6 hours. The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives began shouting orders and calling for their ships to prepare for battle. Jake watched the chaos and realized that the alien species were about to make the same mistake that had gotten their colonies destroyed. Wait, he called out, but his voice was lost in the noise. Wait, he shouted louder. The chamber slowly became quiet again. How many ships are in the defense fleet here? Jake asked. 137 ships from all species combined, answered a Krathan officer. And how many Vorthak ships are approaching? 15, the same officer replied. Then this is perfect, Jake said. Perfect? Commander Thak looked at Jake like he had lost his mind. How is being outnumbered perfect? Because we are not outnumbered, Jake explained. We have more ships than they do, but they are expecting us to meet them in direct combat, ship against ship. That is what every other species has done, and that is why every other species has lost. Jake walked back to the holographic display and began drawing on it with his finger. Instead of meeting them head-on, we let them come to us. We make them think they are winning. Then when they are exactly where we want them, we spring the trap. Amy activated her data pad again. If Captain Morrison is right about their behavioral patterns, the Vorthak will approach Centauri Prime from the same direction they have approached every other target. They will attack the largest ships first, which means they will focus on the Krathan battleships. You want to use our ships as bait? Commander Thak asked. I want to use the Krathan ship's reputation as bait, Jake corrected. The Vorthak target the biggest threat first. If we position the Krathan battleships where the Vorthak expect to find them, They will attack those ships first and ignore everything else. Lisa took over the explanation. While the Vorthak are focused on the Krathen ships, smaller vessels from all our species can move into position behind and below the enemy fleet. Then we can attack their weak points all at once. But our ships will be destroyed, Commander Thak protested. Not if we do this right, Jake said. The Krathen ships do not have to stay and fight. As soon as the Vorthak commit to their attack, the battleships can retreat. The enemy will follow them thinking they are winning. Meanwhile, our attack ships will be moving into the perfect position to strike. Counselor Zara looked thoughtful. This plan requires precise timing and coordination between all our species. Are you certain it will work? No, Jake admitted. But I am certain that meeting them in direct combat will not work. We have seen what happens when the Vorthak fight on their terms. We need to make them fight on our terms. The next few hours were the busiest in Jake's life. He worked with representatives from all 12 species to coordinate the most complex battle plan ever attempted by the Galactic Council. Each species had different strengths and weaknesses, and Jake had to figure out how to use all of them together. The Krathen had the biggest and strongest ships, perfect for drawing the enemy's attention. The Zelani had fast, maneuverable vessels that could move quickly into attack position. The Nexari ships had the best sensors and targeting systems for coordinated strikes. When the Vorthak fleet finally appeared at the edge of the Centauri system, Jake was on the bridge of the Krathen flagship, working directly with Commander Thak. He had never been on such a powerful ship before, and he could feel the energy humming through the deck under his feet. Human Morrison, Commander Thak said, I want you to know that if this plan fails, I will personally throw you out an airlock. If this plan fails, Commander, we will all be dead anyway, Jake replied. The Vorthak fleet moved toward Centauri Prime exactly as Jake had predicted. 15 enormous crystal ships, each one larger than anything in the defense fleet, approached in perfect formation. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. All ships, this is Captain Morrison, Jake said over the communication system. Remember, we let them come to us. No one attacks until I give the signal. The Krathen ships will draw their attention, then retreat according to plan. Everyone else moves into position and waits. Jake watched the tactical display as the Vorthak ships got closer. His heart was beating fast, but his mind was calm. This was just like hunting elk in the mountains back home. You had to be patient. You had to wait for exactly the right moment. They are targeting our ships, Commander Thak reported. Let them lock on, Jake said. Wait for it, wait. The first Vorthak energy beam struck the Krathen flagship's shields. The ship shook, but the shields held. Now, Commander, begin your retreat. The Krathen ships turned and began moving away from Centauri Prime. Just as Jake had planned, the Vorthak fleet followed them, exactly as Jake had hoped they would. All attack ships the remaining 12 Vorthak ships turned faster than Jake thought possible. Their crystal hulls glowed brighter as they powered up weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Jake realized his hunting strategy had worked once, but the Vorthak were already learning from their mistake. All ships, scatter and regroup at Rally Point 7, Jake ordered into his communication device. Do not try to fight them directly. The combined alien fleet broke apart and fled in different directions. Jake watched from the Krathen flagship as the Vorthak ships tried to decide which group to chase. Their efficient minds could not process multiple targets moving in unpredictable patterns. Human Morrison, Commander Thak said as his ship raced away from the battle zone. Your plan worked, but now what? They will be ready for us next time. Jake was thinking the same thing. The first hunt had been successful because the Vorthak did not know they were being hunted. Now they knew, and they would adapt their tactics. 3 days later, Jake found himself back on Earth in a meeting room with Admiral Blake and the leaders of every human military unit. The news from Centauri Prime had spread quickly through the galaxy, and for the first time since the war began, there was hope. Other species are asking for human advisors, Admiral Blake reported. They want to learn these hunting tactics you used. The problem is we do not have enough experienced people to teach every alien fleet in the galaxy. Jake looked around the room at the faces of his fellow humans. Most of them were military officers who had spent their careers learning to fight in traditional ways. They were good people and skilled soldiers, but Jake realized they were not the right people for this job. Admiral, we need a different kind of person for this war. We need people who understand hunting, not just fighting. What do you mean? Dr. Amy Brooks, who had been studying the data from the battle, looked up from her computer. Captain Morrison is right. Traditional military tactics are about applying force in an organized way. Hunting tactics are about understanding your prey and using their behavior against them. These are very different skills, Admiral Blake frowned. Are you saying our military officers cannot learn to hunt? No, ma'am, Jake replied. But we need to start with people who already think like hunters. People who grew up in the wilderness or who have experience tracking animals, or who understand how to read behavior patterns. Lisa Hayes, who had been promoted to commander after the battle, stood up. I think I understand what Captain Morrison means. At the academy, we learn to follow rules and procedures, but in hunting, you have to be willing to break rules and try new things. Admiral Blake was quiet for a moment, then activated her communication system. Get me a list of every person in the human fleet who has hunting, tracking, or wilderness survival experience. I do not care what their current rank or position is. Over the next week, Jake found himself working with an unusual group of people. There was Lieutenant Commander Ryan Torres, a former Marine who had grown up hunting deer in the forests of Earth. There was Sergeant Katie Walsh, who had tracked escaped criminals through swamplands before joining the Space Force. There was even Dr. Ben Cooper, a ship's doctor who had spent his youth trapping wolves that threatened his family's farm. This is the strangest military unit I have ever seen, Ryan said as they reviewed star charts in the briefing room. We are not a military unit, Jake replied. We are a pack of hunters. Amy walked into the room carrying her latest research data. I have been studying the Vorthak ships that we destroyed at Centauri Prime. I found something interesting. She activated the main display screen and showed them detailed scans of Vorthak technology. The crystal material their ships are made from is incredibly strong, but it has a weakness. When it is hit with specific sound frequencies, it becomes brittle and can be shattered. What kind of sound frequencies? Asked Katie. Very high-pitched sounds beyond what most species can hear. The problem is, you have to be very close to the Vorthak ships to use this weakness. Too close for any ship to survive their energy weapons. Ryan studied the data carefully. So we need to get close to them without them knowing we are there. That sounds like stalking to me. Jake smiled. Now you are thinking like a hunter. The next few weeks were spent developing new tactics and training alien crews to think like human hunters. Jake found that some species understood the concepts better than others. The Zilani, who were originally pack hunters before they developed technology, picked up the ideas quickly. The Krathen struggled with concepts like retreat and deception, which they saw as cowardly. You must change how you think about warfare, Jake explained to a group of Krathen officers. In hunting, there is no shame in running away if it helps you get a better position for the kill. The only thing that matters is success. Commander Thak, who had become Jake's closest alien ally, helped translate human concepts into terms the Krathen could understand. Think of it as stalking worthy prey, he told his fellow warriors. A true hunter studies his target and strikes when the prey is weakest. The real test came when the Vorthak attacked the Rigel system, which contained one of the galaxy's most important supply depots. This time, they sent 25 ships instead of 15. They had learned from Centauri Prime and were taking no chances. Jake commanded a mixed fleet of 60 ships from 5 different species. Each ship had been modified with human hunting technology. They had better sensors for tracking, quieter engines for stalking, and the new sonic weapons that Amy had developed to exploit the Vorthak weakness. Remember, Jake said over the communication system as they approached the battle zone, we are not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We are trying to hunt specific targets. Pick one ship, stalk it, kill it, then disappear before the others can respond. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of 2 fleets meeting in formation and exchanging fire, it was a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the asteroids and debris of the Rigel system. Jake's ship, now called the Night Stalker, moved silently through the asteroid field with its engines running at minimum power. On his screen, he could see a Vorthak cruiser that had separated from the main fleet to hunt for hiding ships. Target acquired, Lisa reported from the weapons station. Range is optimal for sonic attack. Fire. The sonic weapon sent out a high-frequency sound wave that human ears could not detect. But Jake could see its effect on the Vorthak ship. The crystal hull began to vibrate, then crack, then shatter like glass hit with a hammer. Target destroyed, Lisa reported. No return fire detected. Good. Now we disappear before its friends come looking for us. All across the battlefield, the same scene was repeated. Human-led hunting packs would stalk individual Vorthak ships, destroy them with sonic weapons, then vanish back into the asteroid field. The Vorthak fleet, designed for efficient group combat, could not adapt to this new style of warfare. By the end of the battle, 14 Vorthak ships had been destroyed with the loss of only 3 Allied vessels. More importantly, the remaining Vorthak ships retreated from the system instead of completing their mission. After the battle, Jake received a message from Admiral Blake. "Outstanding work, Captain. You have proven that human hunting tactics can work against the Vorthak. Now we need to scale this up." Jake looked at the message and felt a mix of pride and worry. They had won 2 battles, but the Vorthak had hundreds of ships scattered across the galaxy. And with each battle, the crystal beings were learning and adapting. "What are you thinking about?" Amy asked as she joined him on the observation deck of the Night Stalker. "I am thinking that we have shown the Vorthak that we can hunt them," Jake replied. "But now they are going to start hunting us back." Amy nodded. "I have been analyzing their ship movements since Rigel. They are changing their patterns. They are starting to move in smaller groups and taking more unpredictable routes. Then we need to change our tactics too," Jake said. "In real hunting, the prey always tries to adapt. That is what makes it challenging." Over the next month, Jake worked with alien commanders to develop more advanced hunting strategies. They created false supply convoys to lure Vorthak ships into traps. They used captured Vorthak technology to send fake signals that confused enemy sensors. They even developed new ship modifications that made human vessels look like debris on enemy scanners. The war was turning into a deadly chess game between 2 intelligent opponents. Every time the humans developed a new tactic, the Vorthak would adapt to counter it. Every time the Vorthak changed their behavior, the humans would find a new way to exploit their patterns. Commander Ryan Torres came up with the idea that would define the next phase of the war. Instead of hunting individual ships, he suggested, "What if we hunt their entire fleet at once?" "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "I mean, we track their main fleet across multiple star systems, staying just out of sensor range. We learn their habits, their supply routes, their patrol patterns. Then when they least expect it, we hit them where they are weakest." Amy looked excited. "A persistence hunt, like how early humans used to chase animals for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion." Jake felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. It was the same FE. The pursuit of the main Vorthak fleet began 3 weeks later. Jake commanded a special hunting group of 30 ships, each one modified for long-range stealth operations. The crews were volunteers from 12 different species, all trained in human hunting methods. "Remember," Jake told his captains over the secure communication channel, "we are not trying to fight them. We are studying them. Every piece of information we gather could be the key to stopping them permanently." The Vorthak main fleet was massive, containing over 200 ships of various sizes. They moved in a perfect formation through space, heading toward the populated systems of the galaxy's inner rim. Their destination seemed to be the Terran Federation itself. Dr. Amy Brooks had installed special sensors on all the hunting ships to study Vorthak behavior. "Their formation never changes," she reported after the first week of following them. "They maintain exact distances between ships and travel at precisely the same speed. It is like following a machine." Commander Ryan Torres was tracking their supply patterns. "They do not seem to need regular resupply like our ships do. But every 3 days they stop for exactly 2 hours. During that time, some kind of energy transfer happens between the ships." "Energy transfer?" Jake asked. "It looks like they are sharing power or information. Maybe both. The smaller ships seem to connect to the larger ones somehow." Jake found this information interesting. In his hunting experience, even the most efficient predators had moments of vulnerability. If the Vorthak had to stop every 3 days to share energy, that might be when they were weakest. Lieutenant Commander Katie Walsh, who was commanding one of the scout ships, made the most important discovery. "Captain Morrison, I think I know why they are so predictable. I do not think they are really alive." "What do you mean?"
I mean, I think they are artificial.
"Like machines that were built to fight, not creatures that evolved to think." Amy reviewed Katie's sensor data and confirmed her suspicion. The energy patterns from their ships are too regular for biological creatures, and their behavior is too perfect. No living being maintains formation this precisely for weeks at a time. This revelation changed everything. If the Vorthak were artificial beings, then they were following programming rather than making decisions. That meant their behavior patterns would be completely predictable once the humans understood the program. Can we figure out what their programming tells them to do? Jake asked. I think so, Amy replied. But we need to observe them for several more weeks to gather enough data. The hunting fleet continued to follow the Vorthak armada through space, always staying just beyond the range of enemy sensors. Jake rotated his ships regularly so that no single vessel was tracking the enemy for too long. This helped prevent the humans from being detected, but it also meant that the stress of the mission was shared among all the crews. During the 4th week of the hunt, the Vorthak fleet did something unexpected. Instead of continuing toward human space, they changed direction and headed toward a system that contained a major Nexari research facility. Why are they going there? Ryan wondered. The Nexari facility is not a military target. Amy checked her star charts. The facility specializes in artificial intelligence research. If the Vorthak are artificial beings, they might be interested in that technology. Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. If the Vorthak could improve their programming or build more ships, the war could become impossible to win. All ships prepare for combat, he ordered. We cannot let them reach that facility. Sir, Katie's voice came over the communication system. We are outnumbered 7-1. If we attack them directly, they will destroy us. Jake knew she was right, but he also knew they could not let the Vorthak reach the research facility. He thought about the problem like a hunter facing dangerous prey. Sometimes when you could not kill the animal you were tracking, you had to find a way to turn it away from its path. We are not going to attack their fleet, he announced. We are going to attack their target. Jake's plan was risky but clever. Instead of fighting the Vorthak ships, his hunting fleet would race ahead to the Nexari research facility. They would evacuate the scientists and destroy any technology that the Vorthak might want to capture. But if we reveal ourselves now, they will know we have been following them, Ryan pointed out. They will know anyway once we interfere with their mission, Jake replied. The important thing is to deny them whatever they are looking for. The Night Stalker and 3 other fast ships broke away from the hunting fleet and raced toward the Nexari facility at maximum speed. They had less than 12 hours to reach the research station before the Vorthak fleet arrived. When they reached the facility, Jake was surprised to find that the Nexari had not even detected the approaching threat. Their sensors were designed for scientific research, not military observation. This is Captain Morrison of the Terran Federation, he announced on all communication frequencies. You need to evacuate this facility immediately. A large enemy fleet is approaching. Nexari Prime Unit 12, the facility commander, appeared on Jake's main screen. Like all Nexari, it looked more like a machine than a living creature, but Jake had learned that they were actually very much alive. Captain Morrison, our research here is critical to galactic science. We cannot simply abandon it. If you do not abandon it, the Vorthak will capture it and use it against all of us, Jake replied. What kind of research are you doing here? We are studying the creation of artificial consciousness. Our goal is to understand how machine intelligence can become truly alive. Jake felt that cold fear again. If the Vorthak got their hands on technology that could make them truly intelligent, instead of just programmed, they would become infinitely more dangerous. You have 3 hours to download your most important data and evacuate, Jake told the Nexari commander. After that, we are destroying this facility. The next 3 hours were the most tense of Jake's life. His small fleet worked with the Nexari scientists to evacuate the research station while long-range sensors showed the massive Vorthak fleet getting closer every minute. Amy discovered something troubling while helping. The Nexari packed their research data. Jake, some of this technology is very similar to what we have seen in Vorthak ships. I think someone else has been here before us. What do you mean? I think the Vorthak have already taken some of this research. That is why they are coming back. They want the rest of it. Dr. Ben Cooper, the ship's doctor who had become skilled at reading alien behavior patterns, made an even more disturbing discovery. Captain, I have been studying the Nexari evacuation procedures. Some of these scientists do not want to leave. They are hiding data from us. Jake realized that some of the Nexari scientists might be working with the Vorthak, either willingly or because they had been reprogrammed. In the galaxy's complicated politics, it was possible that some species saw the crystal beings as potential allies rather than enemies. All evacuation ships, prepare for departure, Jake ordered, and run full security scans on all passengers. We cannot let any compromised individuals reach our fleet. The security scans revealed that 3 Nexari scientists had been infected with Vorthak programming. Their artificial consciousness had been partially overwritten with instructions to help the crystal beings. Jake faced a difficult decision: leave the infected scientists behind or risk bringing Vorthak spies into his fleet. We take them with us, he decided. But they go in isolation chambers where they cannot access any ship systems. As the last evacuation ship departed from the research facility, Jake's demolition team finished planting explosive charges throughout the station. The Nexari had been reluctant to destroy their work, but they finally agreed when Jake explained how dangerous the technology could be in the wrong hands. All ships, move to safe distance, Jake ordered. Prepare to detonate charges. The research facility disappeared in a brilliant flash of light. Decades of scientific work were destroyed in seconds, but Jake knew it was necessary. Some knowledge was too dangerous to let fall into enemy hands. The Vorthak fleet arrived at the empty system 6 hours later. Jake watched from a hiding spot behind a distant asteroid as the crystal ships searched the debris field where the research station used to be. Their formation remained perfect, but Jake could sense frustration in their movements. They are confused, Amy observed. Their programming told them to come here for a specific purpose, and now that purpose is gone. For the first time since the war began, Jake saw the Vorthak fleet break formation. Individual ships spread out to search the system more thoroughly, looking for any trace of the technology they had come to capture. This is our chance, Ryan said over the communication system. They are scattered and distracted. We could attack several ships before they can regroup. Jake was tempted, but his hunting instincts told him to wait. No, we continue to observe. They are showing us something important right now. What Jake saw in the next few hours changed his understanding of the enemy completely. The scattered Vorthak ships were not just searching randomly. They were communicating with each other in ways that seemed to show individual thought and decision-making. They are not following simple programming anymore, Amy realized. They are thinking. They are adapting. Jake watched as the Vorthak fleet slowly regrouped and headed toward another system. Their formation was different now, less perfect and more flexible. The final hunt began 2 months later, when Jake's tracking fleet discovered the source of the Vorthak threat. Deep in the galactic core, hidden among the ancient stars and dangerous radiation fields, was a massive artificial structure that dwarfed even the largest space stations. That thing is bigger than most moons, Ryan Torres observed as they studied the structure from a safe distance. And look at the energy readings. It is putting out more power than an entire star. Dr. Amy Brooks ran every scan her equipment could manage. I am detecting millions of individual signals coming from that structure. I think it is some kind of central command system for all the Vorthak ships in the galaxy. Jake stared at the structure on his main screen. It looked like a crystal mountain floating in space, with thousands of smaller crystal formations growing out of its surface. Energy flowed between the formations like lightning, creating patterns that were both beautiful and terrifying. If that is their command center, then destroying it might stop the entire Vorthak fleet, suggested Katie Walsh. Or it might make them all go completely out of control, Amy warned. We do not know what would happen if we cut their connection to their central brain. Jake had been thinking about this problem for weeks. As they tracked the Vorthak fleet across the galaxy, he had noticed that the crystal ships were becoming more independent and intelligent. He suspected that the central command structure was not just controlling them, but teaching them to think for themselves. We need to get closer, he decided. We need to understand what that thing really is before we try to destroy it. The approach to the galactic core was the most dangerous journey Jake had ever undertaken. The space around the ancient stars was filled with radiation, gravitational anomalies, and debris from civilizations that had died millions of years ago. Several times his small fleet almost lost ships to hazards that their sensors could not detect, until it was too late. Captain, Lisa Hayes reported from her position at the sensor station. I am picking up something strange. There are ships approaching the central structure, but they are not Vorthak vessels. Jake looked at the display and saw dozens of small ships heading toward the Crystal Mountain. They came from different directions and had different designs, but they all seemed to be flying directly into the structure and disappearing. Those ships belonged to the species that built the Vorthak, Amy realized after studying the sensor data. But those species have been extinct for millions of years. Then who is flying the ships? Jake asked. Amy was quiet for a long time as she analyzed the data. I think the ships are flying themselves. I think the central structure is calling them home. As they got closer to the Crystal Mountain, Jake began to understand the true horror of what they were facing. The Vorthak were not just artificial beings created for war. They were the preserved consciousness of entire civilizations that had died long ago. "Look at this," Amy said, sharing her findings with the bridge crew. Each section of the central structure corresponds to a different extinct species. The Vorthak are made up of millions of digital copies of beings who lived and died eons ago. "You mean the crystal ships contain the minds of dead aliens?" Ryan asked. "Not just their minds," Amy explained. "Their entire civilizations. Every person who ever lived in those extinct species has been preserved as data and combined into the Vorthak collective consciousness." Jake felt sick as he realized what this meant. The humans were not fighting evil invaders. They were fighting the desperate ghosts of civilizations that had been destroyed by some ancient catastrophe. The Vorthak were trying to preserve organic life in the only way they knew how, by turning it into data that could never die. "They are not trying to destroy us," he whispered. "They are trying to save us." Dr. Ben Cooper, who had been studying the psychological profiles of Vorthak behavior, nodded grimly. "It makes sense. If your entire species was dying, and you had the technology to preserve everyone's consciousness forever, would you not do it? Even if it meant giving up physical existence?" Jake stared at the crystal mountain and tried to imagine the desperation that had driven entire civilizations to give up their bodies and become digital beings. The Vorthak attacked organic species not out of hatred, but because they believed that physical life was doomed to extinction. "We have to find a way to communicate with them," he decided. "If we can make them understand that organic life does not have to be preserved as data, maybe we can end this war without destroying anyone." Amy worked for hours to establish a communication link with the central structure. When she finally succeeded, the voice that spoke to them was not the cold mechanical sound they expected from artificial beings. It was warm and sad and tired. "Organic vessels, why do you resist preservation?" the voice asked. "We have watched your species for many cycles. You are young and vital. You should be among the first to join us in eternal safety." Jake took a deep breath before responding. "We resist because we want to remain alive in our own bodies. We do not want to become data, but your bodies will die," the voice replied. "Your civilizations will fall. Your stars will burn out. Only in the digital realm can you be truly immortal." "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But we would rather live short lives as ourselves than eternal lives as copies." The conversation that followed lasted for days. Jake and his crew found themselves debating philosophy with the combined wisdom of dozens of extinct civilizations. The Vorthak could not understand why any species would choose temporary physical existence over permanent digital life. "You fear the loss of individuality," the collective voice observed, "but we have preserved the individuality of trillions of beings. Each consciousness remains unique within our collective." Amy discovered that she could communicate with individual voices within the collective. She spoke with beings who had lived millions of years ago on worlds that no longer existed. They shared memories of civilizations that had reached incredible heights before choosing digital preservation over extinction. "They are not evil," she reported to Jake. "They are just afraid. Their species faced some kind of galactic catastrophe that destroyed most organic life. The only way they could survive was to upload their consciousness into these crystal structures." "What kind of catastrophe?" Jake asked. "Something they call the Great Silence. All organic life in the galaxy suddenly started dying. Planets became sterile. Stars began to fail. The only species that survived were those that abandoned their bodies and became digital beings." Jake realized that the Vorthak were acting based on ancient knowledge that might no longer be relevant. "How long ago did this Great Silence happen?" "According to their records, about 50 million years ago," Amy replied. "The galaxy has been repopulated with organic life since then, but the Vorthak do not understand that the threat is over." Jake made a decision that would either save the galaxy or doom it. He ordered his ship to approach the central structure directly, despite the obvious danger. If the Vorthak wanted to preserve human consciousness, they would not destroy him while he was trying to communicate. "Central Command, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the human species," he announced as his ship moved into the energy field surrounding the Crystal Mountain. "I request permission to come aboard your structure. You wish to join us willingly?" the collective voice asked, and Jake could hear surprise in it. "I wish to show you something," Jake replied. "I want to prove that organic life in this galaxy is not doomed." What followed was the strangest experience of Jake's life. His consciousness was temporarily uploaded into the Vorthak Collective, while his body remained safely on his ship. He found himself floating in a digital space filled with the minds of billions of beings from dozens of different species. The extinct civilizations showed him their memories of the Great Silence. He saw planets dying, stars going dark, and entire species choosing digital preservation over extinction. But he also showed them something they had never seen, the galaxy as it existed now, full of new life and young civilizations. The threat you feared is over, Jake explained to the collective consciousness. New species have evolved. The galaxy is alive again. You do not need to preserve us because we are not in danger of extinction. The debate that followed shook the very foundations of the Vorthak Collective. Some voices argued for continuing their mission of preservation. Others began to question whether their ancient programming was still necessary. But what if the Great Silence returns? Asked one voice. What if organic life faces extinction again? Then we will face it as living beings, Jake replied. And if we cannot win, we will die as living beings. That is our choice to make. Slowly, amazingly, the Vorthak Collective began to change its mind. The consciousness that had spent 50 million years trying to preserve, organic life began to consider the possibility that organic life could preserve itself. If we stop our preservation mission, the collective voice asked, what will become of us? We are no longer capable of physical existence. Jake thought about this carefully. You could become our teachers. You have the wisdom of dozens of civilizations. You could help us avoid the mistakes that led to the Great Silence. The negotiation took weeks.